Hello, it's Caroline here. I'm just checking, Mary, are you able to hear me and on the line?
Hi, Caroline. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. That's it. All.
Excellent.
So look, everyone, Mary and I will be discussing this topic. I've left everyone in listen-only mode. But we'll give you an opportunity at the end of the session to make any comments or questions. I'm just going to give people a couple more minutes before we get started. So thanks everyone for joining us. Okay, so I think we can get started. I did say 10 past one, but let's just start and people will join us as we go along. So as I said, I'd like to start by welcoming Mary Scutella, who's going to be talking about this topic with me. So Mary's with the Victorian Government Library Service. My name is Caroline Nags and I'm the CPD rep on the ALIA board. So what we're talking about is working in different types of law libraries. And this topic came up basically because someone who's newly joined the sector was talking to me about, you know, what the differences were, I guess, between working in other types of libraries and working in law libraries. So I thought it was a good topic to pose to this group, and it's really interesting because this is like the most popular webinar that we've had for a little while. So I think that's a really good thing, and it's good to talk about different things as we go along. As I said, all the participants, apart from Mary, are muted, but towards the end of the session, I will unmute everyone so that you can ask questions if you have. Hopefully, the technology will work, crossing our fingers. Crossing our fingers. Also, at the end, we will be putting the recording up on the ALA website. So if anyone's has to leave or has missed out or whatever, they can certainly listen to that there. So starting off, Mary, did you want to tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I am currently at the Victorian Government Library Service. Prior to that, the bulk of my professional career was spent at Ashurst, which was formerly Blake Dawson and Blake Dawson Waldron. So I was there for almost 17 years or thereabouts. Started off as a library assistant and then moved up to being a reference librarian and then the Melbourne library manager and the national research manager. And in between times, I had opportunities to do things such as current awareness and dabbled in a bit of training, but predominantly I did research. And so from there, so for the last 2.5 years, I've been in the Victorian government sector at the VGLS. And so not only did I move from private sector to public, but the VGLS in its own right is quite a unique entity in that we are a decentralised library that services all of the government departments. So we are one library. We come under the Department of Treasury and Finance, but we service all the government departments and entities. So we have 10 different clients. Those clients are all on different IT systems, have different email systems, different HR, different intranets. There is no one umbrella that brings our clients together. So I think from the research we've done, we're probably the only library that operates, the only government library that operates the way we do. Some of the other jurisdictions have gone down this path slowly. I know in Queensland they have, but not to the extent that it covers whole of gov. So, so that's quite different. And our funding model is different as well. So our clients fund us through a yearly management fee. So life here is very different. And here at the VGLS, I'm a research librarian. So I'm one of 2 law librarians who work in the team. And so we provide research assistance to all the lawyers who work for the Victorian government, regardless of which department they're in, and also anyone in a policy capacity who, or a regulatory capacity, who has a legal emphasis.
Wow, that sounds like it's not diverse at all, Mary.
No, not at all.
So does that include the courts as well?
No, it doesn't. No, the courts have their own libraries. So they have their own libraries, as does public prosecutions, and the Victorian Law Commission also has its own library, but for the most part, that's it.
Okay, that sounds really, really expansive. So, I mean, my background is similar in some ways, but probably a bit different. I started out at Wisewood Shilling as a job sort of after uni, I'd go in late in the afternoon, and I always smile fondly when I think that, because they had multiple copies of several loose leaves, including ones that they hadn't filed for like a year. So my first job was updating that loose leaf service. So, not sad that the loose leaves have now gone pretty much online, gone away from that, format. I think it's much more user friendly. And then I went to government, Ministry of Consumer Affairs, went on to another law firm, and now I've come to an academic institution at Monash. And, each of those libraries is quite different in some ways, but very similar in the fact that we've always got that client group that you're serving, that you're trying to do your utmost for and provide access to materials, whether it be in print or online. So, as I say, in some ways it's quite similar. But, I probably haven't had that diversity that you're talking about, Mary.
Yeah. I still do predominantly legal work, but the team around me, I'm part of 6. There are 6 research librarians within our team, and apart from my colleague and I, the rest all have different focuses.
Absolutely. It sounds very a comprehensive service. So were you always interested in focusing sort of in law, or was it more something that you sort of used an opportunity to get into?
I was I only ever wanted to be a law librarian, so I didn't want to become a librarian as such. I'd never even remotely thought of it. And my mother used to work in law firms, and I was kind of a typical arts grad going, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And my mum said, look, why don't you come in and just spend the day with the librarian? I'm like, oh, you have a library. And I spent the day with the librarian, and it just clicked. I'm like, oh yeah, this is really cool. And it also kind of coincided with, you know, the realization during doing my arts degree that I liked doing the research. I just hated writing the essays. I didn't want to write the essays. I just wanted to fossick and find stuff. And so it was always going to be law libraries. It was like I'd never thought otherwise of going into the sector, like in different other parts of the sector, like publics or academics. It was always going to be law.
So it's interesting because my interest, I suppose, is a little bit different because I've had experience in Department of Defence, and that was very diverse, a little bit like what you're talking about with your current role, Mary. Department of Defence had a whole range of, you know, very diverse groups, and then I came into law, I suppose, because there was a position that I was interested in going to at Allens, or as they were, Arthur Robinson Hedwicks at that point. And I think it's a really interesting area, the law, because it's such a evolving area, and it really engages your interest because there's always different sort of developments, and it's, you know, very dynamic to be, you know, moving on. Learning about things as you go and how the law changes.
That's right. And it's been a real eye-opener being here, because I have had the opportunity to do some research outside of law, and that in itself has been fascinating, just to actually see how to apply those kind of essential skills in being a librarian and an information professional, and how to apply them in the different subject areas. But it also really reinforced just how specialist and niche law in particular is.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's one thing that I like working at the academic, in an academic environment, because you have the opportunity to work in multidisciplinary areas, because it's, you know, there is one faculty or one area within the university. It's not just the law library, it's, you know, engineering and science and arts and these projects that are involved with across all the different faculties.
Yeah.
So that's something I find that's quite different in this sort of environment, as opposed to roles that I've had before. So how would your typical day kind of, or a typical week, like obviously there's going to be a lot of different components that you need to organise and be aware of and work within?
That's right. So I guess a typical day or week for me will be research is the main component of my day. So we don't have set research desk shifts the way we did at Ashurst, where we were rostered on a shift for a certain number of hours a day or a certain number of days a week. Now we're just on research 8 hours a day. And so we use Ref Tracker as a reference management system, and so you're just allocated research. So my first port of call always is research and addressing any client, any client inquiries. In addition to that, we do have a chat system called Ref Chatter. So I work 3 days a week, and I'm rostered on Ref Chatter 3 half days a week, either being the pilot or assisting one of my colleagues as the co-pilot and being their backup. And in addition to that, I'm also Robert and I, my colleague and I, are also responsible for running legal training. So that includes what we call whole of gov training, which are training programs that are advertised to everyone across all departments. We run sessions on legislation and on case law, and that's quite interesting because we're offering training. We're not just offering training. It won't just be lawyers who turn up. It'll also be policy people and government grads who actually have no idea about legislation and how it works, but all of a sudden need to kind of have a vague understanding of what the process is because that's government business. So it's really interesting trying to run these sessions. Robert and I developed the program, and it's been really challenging trying to pitch it at the right level to capture the diverse audience and try and pitch it at that middle level where lawyers who kind of need a bit of a refresher and need the CPD points will come and not feel like they're totally bored out of their brains, but we're not overwhelming non-legal people by talking above their heads. So at the moment I've been working on that a lot because I've been doing a lot of the background planning for the whole of government program so we run 4 sessions, the 2 legal ones and also 2 more generalist ones, an overview session, which is just an introduction to the library service, and a discovery one, which is all about how to actually structure a search and really run an in-depth research query, because a lot of our clients do their own research, so in policy and scientists and things like that. So my days lately have actually been doing that back-end admin stuff and actually organising all of that for the year, and also reaching out to our departments, so reaching out to our clients, to the legal teams, because engagement in libraries, engagement is always super important, but here where our clients are so diverse and in so many different locations, across the regions, we're not just talking about 10 departments, we're talking about 10 departments have locations across the state. So because of that, engagement's really important. So trying to get out to the actual teams within the departments to run tailored sessions as well. So all of a sudden, training has become a really important part of this role as well. And in addition to that, I'm also responsible for Ref Tracker, which is our reference management system. So my day can be doing anything along those lines, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have many people joining your training sessions remotely?
At the moment, it's face-to-face. It's only if they're willing to travel to the CBD for the sessions, but that's something we've really been looking at. And one of the things I actually did last year was looking at the opportunities that are available to us around virtual training, and it's a path that we're definitely going down, but at the moment we are hampered by, as I mentioned at the beginning, all our clients are on different systems. We're not on all one IT system. Some are using Lotus Notes, some are using Outlook. We're all slowly making our way across to Office 365, but not everyone's there. So that is the plan eventually, is to do that remote training. But for the moment, it just is whoever we can see face to face, whether it's them coming to us or us going to them. We have done roadshows to clients in Geelong and Bendigo and Queenscliff lately, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's quite interesting because here, of course, there's a big call for teaching, and that's a major part of what I do is teaching the law students about legal research and how to do it properly. And that's at a range of levels, because we have undergraduate and postgraduate students, and we teach into units across the course. So not just at first year, not just at the final year, but throughout the course. And it's interesting that there's, there has been at certain times quite a push for people to be able to access remotely, listen to recorded lectures and so forth. But what we always say is research is a practical skill. So, in order to do it, you need to practically take it on board. You need to actually practice it. You can't sort of just tap into resources. You can't just listen to lectures remotely to pick up all the nuances of it.
Definitely.
Yeah, okay. And so what sort of similarities do you think there are between kind of across the law sector?
Well, the legal work is primarily the same. When you're doing work for a lawyer, you're doing work for a lawyer because our lawyers are practicing. They're not academics in the same way yours are. So I'm still being asked to do that fundamental legislation, casework, commentary work. So that's primarily the same. And actually that was one of the draw cards for me coming to this role, was the fact that I was getting back into doing research because I'd been removed from it for quite a while. And there's still a special library. So we still have the same, as you mentioned, you touched on at the beginning, Caroline, we still have the same concerns as a special library, relevance and engagement and, ensuring that we are the trusted advisor and risk management and so on and so forth. And the need to build relationships and get that message out, that we're here and we can help and how we can help. I think that's pretty much still the same. Yeah.
Do you have, is your collection mainly physical or, print-based, or would it be sort of a greater percentage now online or electronic?
We are moving online, so predominantly being online. So we no longer have a physical CBD space. Until last year, there was a CBD library, and the majority of the key legal resources were actually there, whereas now they've shut that CBD space down, and we have a repository out in Werribee, and that's where our physical holdings are. So these are the physical holdings of all the Victorian Government libraries that have been shut down over the years. So we've got about 7 kilometres worth of, 7 linear kilometres worth of content, like an insane amount of content. So not just legal, but also across scientific, health, like across all the departments. Government publications. And so while we do have a significant print collection, it's actually now it's quite hard to access it because it's not online, it's not at hand. Yeah. And also just the sheer volume of it means that you need to know what you're looking for when you search the catalogue. So I'm finding that we are moving across to online a lot more. And we've got the same kind of key legal resources that I had access to at Ashurst, the 3 legal publishers and so on and so forth, Capital Monitor and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. 7 kilometres is an impressive figure. Actually, I'm wondering if the Consumer Affairs collection might be, or I'm not sure if there's still that library as such is still operating.
No, the library doesn't exist anymore. So the CAV collection has been incorporated into that collection. And we're constantly getting new collections that have been found, in cupboards and boxes and things like that from little entities. So it's constantly growing.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's the same here that, our focus is to go to e-resources, E as they call it, which is makes it much more accessible because we've got some of our users are very widely spread. So, we have people doing graduate research, based in Canberra, based overseas, who are, doing, PhDs or what have you, and they need access to the resources. And it's, of course, much easier for them to be able to do that with the online materials. But we do still have a print collection, which is, organised through Moyes. So I'd be interested how many libraries actually use Moyes, because I'm not sure how widely spread it is, how many libraries still use that. Probably quite a few. Okay, and what about the differences between libraries? Are there significant differences you feel that, in areas that you've worked or libraries you've worked in?
Oh, absolutely. Well, here, and as I mentioned earlier, there's a greater breadth of work, so there is the opportunity to do non-legal research, which I've really enjoyed. And because we're doing policy research, there's a great emphasis on what they call evidence-based research, which I'd heard about when I was at Ashurst, but never really understood what it was or how it was applied. Whereas here, it makes perfect sense. And so doing one of those policy-based research where, an in-depth legal research task may take 3 or 4 hours to do. That's like a hardcore looking at cases or what have you. Here, like if I'm doing policy research, it's not unusual that I could be spending couple of days working on something really in depth. Part of it because I am getting my head around a concept that I don't understand and I'm trying to work out the resources. But part of it is because we're looking at all that peer-reviewed content that's out there and trying to filter it and make sure we're getting the most relevant resources and doing the most rigorous search we can for our clients. So that's quite a novel experience. Takes a real kind of shift in my brain when I am doing that policy type research to really kind of focus and get into the right groove. There's less emphasis on business intelligence. So in the law firms, when I was at Ashurst, in the last few years I was at Ashurst, and I know it's still the case now, real big emphasis on business intelligence because the way the market was changing. Whereas here, we still do business intelligence research, but not in the same context. And there certainly isn't the same emphasis on it because it's not about going out to get more business. So I think that's quite a big difference in terms of just the type of work I deliver. I mentioned the training. There isn't the same, just because of the sheer breadth of. So to give you context, the librarian to client ratios are much bigger. As I mentioned, we've got 6 research librarians. We're part of a bigger team, but those of us who are actually client facing and doing research, there's only 6 of us, and there's potentially 40,000 VPS. And to be honest, that 40,000 includes people who, at Vic Roads serving you at the counter or digging roads or what have you. But nonetheless, even if you break that down, even if we're our clients, we've got 15,000 real-time potential clients, that's a much different scenario to being in a law firm. Where your clients are much more reasonable. So it means engagement is a lot different. Trying to get yourself out there, trying to get the word out there about the library and who we are and how we can deliver is much, much different. And so it means we can't be as, with engagement and with training and things like that, we can't be as detailed as we would love to. It'd be amazing to be able to kind of sit with the lawyers and the legal grads in each of the departments and really kind of give that really detailed, 3 or 4 part graduate training over a year to get them up to speed, but it's just not, the resourcing doesn't allow that. And also just our access to our clients doesn't allow that. So that's quite different. It's much more difficult to get to know who our clients are here. Yeah. Again, just because of numbers and because you're dealing with people in different locations. In a law firm, the ideal was to be sitting on the same floor as your clients, but we were grateful to be in the same building as our clients. Like, it's a much different kind of concept, and that affects like relationship building as well. And because we are funded by our clients, there's a much greater emphasis on KPIs and statistics to really show the value that we provide and the monetary value that we provide.
Yeah.
Which, it's always the case in the library, and it was always the case at Ashurst about, showing your return on investment and the value you provide, but that tended to be more around, the value you were offering clients and how much you were billing clients and things like that, whereas here it's actually showing people who know nothing about libraries like the value that we provide at a dollar and cents level. So it becomes much more about those numbers and also about the narrative you can tell about the value you're providing.
Absolutely. And we have impact stories here, which would equate to that, I think, of what difference are we making? What can we show that we've done that's made a real impact?
Yeah.
Again, that's really important. And, it's interesting because I would say here, working with students, their focus is quite different in terms of they're not wanting you usually to be comprehensive doing research. I want a few relevant resources that are, on point. It's not so much about having that comprehensive research that you're talking about. And the other thing that's different for us is research is a big focus for us, where people store their research, what research is being done in particular areas. The academics are always looking for, how to work with research that's out there and how they can publicise their research, what they're doing, and kind of share with other people and draw in and be involved in, research that's going on. This is a huge push for the library to be involved in. It's just, I suppose, different aspects. It sounds there's quite a lot of similarities, but then there are differences in the different types of libraries that you can be involved in.
Yes, absolutely.
This is what people are interested in, perhaps, how do the different libraries operate and where the differences are. So is there anything in particular that you would sort of recommend if someone was, like working in law, just let's say generally, like would you suggest there's courses that they could do or particular blogs or journals that they should follow?
So not necessarily blogs, but one thing that I read religiously now that I'm in government is a daily email called the Mandarin, which is a government it's a government email about the day, almost like Lawyers Weekly, but about the government and about all the different the governments across all different jurisdictions. Because again, as always, it's about being a librarian is about understanding your clients and your clients' business, regardless of what sector you're in. And so for me, that's actually been really helpful just to understand how government works, because that was a really big thing for me. Think, lawyer, I understand legislation, I understand, the parliamentary process, but that's not government. That's not actually about how government works. That's one component of how of the whole government sector, but it's not how government works. So for me, that's been a really kind of informative thing. So not necessarily government library content, but just finding out about the government has been a big thing. And just keeping an open mind. I really had to let go of what it was like, in public sector we do this, because it's not like that. And it can't be like that. Whatever sector you move into, you just need to let it go, take the good bits of the experience that you gleaned, but then just be open-minded to wherever you are at that time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The thing I'm reading is one of them is The Conversation, which is a good source because it's snapshots. It's got that breadth of, you know, there's the whole range of different short articles that they published, which are really on point on that particular issue, and it sort of gives you that nice overview. So it lets you feed into lots of things, which is what you need within an academic institution, that you've got, you know a lot of what's going on, so you can contribute to that discussion, which, you know, have you heard about this, is something that you will often sort of be asked about or told about or whatever, need to contribute into. So yeah, as we said before, I think it's really interesting how evolving it is, and the Lord, you know, of course, doesn't stay static in any of its forms. So yeah, so Mary, are there any other comments you want to make before I open it up to kind of other people, and hopefully the technology will work?
No, just I think, just like I said, but like the change has been, despite all the differences, the change has been a really good one. I think for me, and I've really enjoyed being able to move sectors. And so if anyone kind of has thoughts about it, or is given the opportunity to do so, I think don't be afraid of it, because it's great. I think it's infinitely helpful just to get experience and learn how the different sectors do things.
Yeah.
Because our skills are so transferable, and they always say that, but it's great to actually put that in practice.
No, absolutely, and I totally agree with you. I think it's good to try out different opportunities and to see how they flow together. So sometimes I've moved out of the law into other types of roles. I've always come back into it as well, having said that. Okay, so now I will just click on and unmute everybody. And if anybody does want to make any comments, please, or questions, please do so. So I'm hoping that's unmuted everybody.
Oh, good. I'm just on.
Does anyone have any comments or questions or thoughts? No? Okay, well, sorry?
Oh no, I was just going to say, Caroline, in case anyone, it looks like everyone's muted, but you can now unmute yourself. So in case anyone was wanted to say something but was unaware of that.
Okay, so look, perhaps, I don't know, Mary, are you available if people did want to contact you separately?
Absolutely, I'll be around for 2 more weeks before I go on extended leave. But yes, please, I'm more than happy to speak to anyone who has any additional questions or would like to talk about it more offline.
For sure, and same with me. Please get in contact with me if you do have any follow-up questions or anything that you're interested in talking about within any of the content that Mary and I have been talking about. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And I suspect the next few sessions we'll run will be more focused around product-based discussions, but we'll see what comes up. So thanks, everyone, and I'll end the webinar now and speak to you all at some point in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me, Caroline.
No, thank you.
Thank you, ladies.